welcome back to my channel. So I'm going to do the get to know the fantasy reader book tag. Yeah, get to know the fantasy reader book tag. There are 9 questions. So let's just jump right into it, shall we? Number 1 is your fantasy origin story. What got you into reading fantasy? Fantasy is something I've always loved. I don't really have much of a story. I think I might be wrong, but I think the first fantasy book I got into was Harry Potter because I read that when I was in either 2nd or 3rd grade, and then now fantasy is pretty much all I read except for one author whose books I love, and like seriously, that's like all I read: fantasy. And that's my favorite genre to watch on TV too. But when it comes to TV, I do watch other genres. I just watch fantasy the most. So yeah, when it comes to books, it's pretty much just fantasy. So I don't really have much of a story because fantasy just always loved what I love to watch, to read, and to write. So fantasy is just my entire life. Number 2 is if you could be a hero or heroine in a fantasy series, who would you want to be the author of, and what trope do you want to be included? I have no idea what author. The only author, I don't really pay attention to authors, to be honest. There's some authors I do know, but I haven't actually read their books yet. They're on my TBR list, and the only reason why I know them is because I hear the names all the time over BookTube. The only author that I really know is Aaron Hunter, and that's because that's my favorite author. It's the only author I've read more than one book of. So yeah, Aaron Hunter doesn't do fantasy. It's the only non-fantasy I read. So I don't really know for the author part, but with the trope, chosen one trope. I love the chosen one trope if done right. Um, I love when the chosen one is flawed, and there are times when they just give up and is ready to just quit, even though they are literally the only one that can do it, because they've had enough, because they've been through crap, and I love that. I love when the chosen one is shown to be human rather than superhuman, and that's the chosen one trope I love. It's my favorite trope, and I love it so much. It's what I love to read it. I love to write it, and so yeah, I would love to be included in that and be the chosen one of my own story. And as long as I'm written to be flawed and human and break every so often. So yeah. Number 3 is what is one fantasy book you have read this year and you want everyone to read? So there are so many that I love and want everyone to read. There's the Effigy trilogy, which I've mentioned so many times on my channel, which is about 4 girls. It follows Maya, who's the fire effigy, and there's like 4 girls that each one controls a different element. Then there's the Skinjacker trilogy, which is about ghosts, pretty much. They're technically ghosts, and some ghosts, only some, not all of them, can skinjack, which is the art of possession. And then there's Bewitched and Oz duology, which is about they're in Oz and magic has been outlawed, but there's this group of teens who have magic, and they sneak off to practice it until one day they're caught, so they have to go on this journey to free their friend who was captured and find a way to make magic legal again. And then I know there's more that I probably should mention. Those are the first 3 that come off the top of my head, so yeah. I'm going to go with those 3. Number 4, who is one of your all-time favorite fantasy authors? Like I said, don't know much about fantasy authors, don't know much about authors, period, so I'm going to skip that one. Number 5 is, how do you usually find fantasy recommendations? I mean, I've gotten a lot of new recommendations from BookTube, and that's where I've been getting a lot of my recommendations lately, honestly. But a lot of times I found some by scrolling through BookTube and looking around, and there's been times I was just scrolling through Goodreads and found a good fantasy series that looks intriguing, and then there's other times that I'm on Thrift Books and I'm looking and I find a new good fantasy series that looks interesting. So yeah. So it just really depends. Like, I find new fantasy books everywhere I go, pretty much. Just, I guess my eyes always open for a new fantasy book. What 6. What is one fantasy series you are looking forward to? So I don't know if this question is supposed to be like anticipated releases that haven't come out yet, because I really don't know about those. But there are books I've been anticipating on my TBR. Like there's the and Ember and the Ashes, which I think is fantasy. I only read fantasy, so I'm pretty sure that's why I was interested in it in the first place. Let's see what else there's. I know there's more. There's I know there's more. My mind's going blank. I'm not wanting to think of any of my fantasy books. Apparently, my TBR list. I just made a video too about like the books I want to read in 2021, and those have my top fantasy books on it. I can't think of them now, but so I'm just gonna go with that one. So yeah. Number 7 is, what is one misconception to fantasy you would like to play to rest? I don't really know many misconceptions to fantasy, so I'm gonna skip that one too. I'm doing a great job, aren't I? Number 8, if somebody came to you asking you where to start to get into fantasy, what 3 books would you recommend? I don't know if these are technically good books to start into fantasy, but they're my favorite books, so I'm gonna go with them. I'm gonna go with Harry Potter. I mean, that's a good place to start. It's where I started. I'm pretty sure. There's the Effigies trilogy, which is good. That might be a little advanced, honestly, but oh well. Bewitched and Oz, I think, is a good place to start, really. So yeah, I'm gonna go with those. And Skinjacker trilogy, but that might be a little bit advanced too. Oh well. Number what was that? 8, 9. Who is the most recent fantasy content creator you want to give a shout out to? Honestly, I think the latest one would be a book browsing vlog. I was just watching some of her videos. That's how I found this tag. It was actually from her, and I like some of her videos so far, and I can't wait to watch more and see what else she uploads. She's a great booktuber, and so yeah, she's probably the latest one, and I love fantasy, so I love when the booktubers I follow love fantasy, because that's more fantasy content for me. So yay! So that's all for this tag, apparently. Please like and subscribe and comment your answers, or do the tag and tag me in it. I would love to see it. And you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Goodreads. And yeah, so that's all for this video, and I'll talk to you guys later.